I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. Let me adjust this a little bit. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and of course, yesterday we got some horrific news. Before the show came on, that Charlie Kirk had been shot at an event at a campus in Utah, and it didn't look good. I saw the video. People were I don't know what all people were hearing about updates and surgeries and all this kind of stuff. He stabilized. No, that I mean, from the shot, it looked like he wasn't going to make it. My sister, one of my sisters, was in the chat and was like, as soon as she saw it, she's like, he's not going to make it. It would have taken like a real miracle. And not saying that I don't believe in miracles. I obviously do, but he's with his maker now. It was a horrific thing to see. I'm still not going to play it if you haven't seen it. I'm sure a lot of people who, I guess, wanted to see it or curious to see it, they've seen it by now. But it was terrible. And the reactions that some people have been really awful. There have been some people who are across the political aisle who have said respectful things. And just saying, there was one girl I saw on TikTok who did a video about Charlie Kirk and his reaction to Juneteenth. And she said Charlie Kirk is a racist because of his reaction to Juneteenth. And she stitched that video because I guess it was gaining a lot of traction again, and people were using it as justification. And she's like, if you believe that this was right, please raise your hand because I'm going to block you. No matter how you feel about this person, he didn't deserve to die. He didn't deserve to die. And even you scumbags who believe that he deserved to die, you still don't even deserve to die. No one deserves to die. I mean, there are people I believe deserve capital punishment, including this person who killed Charlie Kirk. But there are some people with some sense. Unfortunately, there are some big voices that don't. And some of these people are in Congress. I'm going to play a video of AOC ranting about gun control. The type of weapon that was used, it was one shot. It was a bolt action rifle. You know, it's not like a semi-automatic that has a lot of stuff in the chamber. Like you have to like reload the bullet and stuff. And I'm not a gun expert or anything like that, but people are just making the point, unless you're going to get rid of the entire Second Amendment and confiscate everybody's guns, what are you going to do? And how could you like stop what happened? Now, I don't know all about how this person acquired the gun. From what I know, they're still on the hunt. They have released photos of the individual. But Steven Crowder had a whopper of a scoop this morning. I haven't watched the stream. A lot of people were watching a stream because he scooped everybody. And when I saw it early this morning, I didn't immediately share it because I'm like, I want to be, if this isn't true, I don't want to be part of the, conspiracy mountain that just keeps growing and growing and growing. But then different news organizations started to report it. And also there was like a press conference from like the FBI that perhaps was, I think they had to give some kind of update, but anyway, but I don't know if it was prompted by his early morning report, but Steven Crowder reported this morning. It was at 8:35 a.m. Someone from ATF sent him a form explaining the kind of gun that was used, where the path they found it, and also that on the weapons there was different things about gender ideology. And like, I guess Antifa stuff. They say anti-fascist stuff. So that is really crazy because they were like discussing trans shooters. Now I've said this before. I'll say it again. I didn't say hello or anything. I said hello. I do want to say hello to the chat. I didn't do my normal intro. I just went into it. Thank you for joining me. Of course, this is a wild day. Yesterday was a wild day, very sad day, and kind of nerve-wracking day. And thank you for joining me to talk about all this stuff. And it's important to talk about. Some people, I guess, are going to hope that it blows over soon. Charlie Kirk meant a lot to President Trump. He meant a lot to the conservative movement. I've seen a lot of people say that they're not going to call themselves a Democrat anymore. Some people saying that they registered as Republican. There are some people are saying I can't call myself a leftist anymore, or I can't be part of the left. And they're black pilled. They still agree with like economic policies and leftist stuff, but they just can't identify that way anymore. Not just with this, but I'm going to read what Shoe on Head wrote. Because she was also railing about the Ukrainian woman who was stabbed, and the sort of rhetoric that was coming from the media, just trying to downplay it, was just so absurd. So there's a shift, and the Democrats do not have good talking points about this stuff. Like AOC just sounds like a moron who doesn't know anything. And unfortunately, I don't know, the media doesn't know or doesn't want to check her, because they definitely could have like pushed back on some of the stuff that she was saying. But let me show you guys Steven Crowder's tweet with the scoop that he had early this morning. Again, this was 8:35, and I saw it pretty early. I didn't get much sleep. I had Bible study yesterday. I had a good Bible study. We were all talking about what happened. People were asking like, was I okay? And asking like, do you know, if you get threats, like you better take them seriously and stuff. And I talked to a friend on my way over to the Bible study, and he doesn't do like much media content anymore, but he had some very viral stuff that went all over the place in 2020. And I'm like, that could have been any less. Just sharing our opinions. There's plenty of things that I agree with Charlie Kirk on. There's things I could have debated him on, for sure. And different ways I wouldn't have approached the way that he did, or delivered stuff the way that he did. I really admired how much information he could just retain in his head. And his work ethic was just insane. There's a lot to admire about him. But that could have been me. That could have been you. And some people are just noting the difference between Charlie Kirk and the rest of us is that people know who Charlie Kirk is. So I don't know if that scares people out of wanting to talk about this stuff. I think it's going to have the opposite effect. And I want people to not obviously like revolt in some kind of violent sort of way. I want them to take a higher path, because Charlie Kirk really wanted to be remembered as a man of faith. And I'll play a snippet maybe toward the end of him like saying that kind of stuff. So if people, and I've seen some people say, I don't really believe in God, but I believe in evil, and this stuff pushes me more toward religion because I want to be on the other side of whatever the heck this is. So I think that's good. What happened was terrible, but if it does spur more people in the right direction, then that is a good thing out of this tragedy. Anyway, let's actually, I'm not going to read through. I'm just going to kind of breeze through it. But exclusive this morning, my team received an email from an officer at ATF. An email included a screenshot from what appears to be an internal message describing a weapon and cartridges located by an ATF and other law enforcement near the scene of Charlie Kirk shooting at Utah Valley State University. So this is just kind of like the whole memo, and it talks about like the model of the weapon, which is a bolt action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. So that kind of stuff got confirmed later, and they basically use the same kind of language that was in the memo. Um, the spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds at the top fed magazine. All cartridges have been engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. So they are gonna, look at all that stuff and do traces. At this point in time, they did look at pull security footage and get images of the suspected, shooter, and they're looking for him as a person of interest. If that changes and they catch him or something in the midst of this program, hopefully I'll catch it, or you guys will say something in the comments. But that's what we know as of now. So anyway, Crowder posted this memo early in the morning, and Crowder has gotten really good scoops before when they didn't want to release the what the trans shooter had wrote, who was the Tennessee shooter who killed the kids at the Christian school. They didn't want to release her writings, and this was a female who identified as a boy, and he ended up getting a hold of it and releasing it. So he's gotten some good scoops of stuff that people wanted to keep under wraps. I do wonder if he forced their hand, to be honest. I mean, I don't know how much that the media and these folks would want to keep silent about this memo and these details. Like, yeah, they would share what kind of gun it was, where they found the equipment and stuff. But as far as like the different engravings, and the ideology, would they have wanted to share that information? Because CNN reported on it and they just said it was like cultural issue stuff. See if I can think I liked it so I could yeah, here we go. Federal law enforcement says the ammunition used by Charlie Kirk's assassin had transgender anti-fascist ideology engraved on it. CNN makes no mention of what was written, only calling it cultural phrases, adding that it's not clear what the motive is. Yeah, they say a range of phrases related to cultural issues were found scrawled on a rifle and ammunition found on the woods near the conservative activist Charlie Kirk was murdered on Wednesday, according to sources with knowledge of the investigation. This is still so bizarre to just think about Charlie Kirk being murdered. So yeah, they don't even want to say that it was trans stuff. And there was also a chyron, and maybe I don't have, man. I think I have a screenshot of the chyron on my phone, but I don't think maybe I saved it on or marked it. Ugh. Maybe I didn't on X. But they put the same stuff on the chyron, the little screen at the bottom. And so someone in the comments said, were they mostly peaceful cultural issues, like the firing mostly peaceful protests, just doing the most? So I wonder if someone at ATF maybe sent it to Steven Crowder because they knew they were going to bury it. That's just me like spouting theories. Just I don't know if that's the case. I don't know, but it is gross. I think that CNN is downplaying it. Why not at least report what the law enforcement are saying about it? The first news organization that I saw that confirmed the transgender stuff with what law enforcement were saying was the Wall Street Journal. So at that point in time, like, why not just be honest about it? Because it's gonna be out there. You just look foolish. You just really, really look foolish. Just say the truth. And I know they want to protect the trans community, but here's the deal. And I've said this before. The people who have like genuine gender dysphoria, who feel very uncomfortable with their body and still want to find a way to live in the world, and deal with that. And maybe they try to do that even by wearing different clothes, gluing up their hair, and I don't know, maybe doing surgery and other stuff like that. But if you like genuinely have gone through therapy and stuff through the years or whatever, you should try to gatekeep the crap out of this, and allowing everybody who just says, I identify this way, I believe I'm a woman, I'm a man, and they haven't done the quote unquote work and got properly diagnosed, because people say that they're trans and then the doctors will just affirm it. And they'll go down that path instead of exploring, like, hey, do you have some childhood trauma that we should talk about? And maybe that's the root and the source, so we can treat things a different way. They're just conditioned to affirm this stuff. And whether people get seen or not, people will go on TikTok rabbit holes or Reddit or Tumblr and be like, oh, or YouTube, and they're like, oh, this person says that they're trans, and that, I feel uncomfortable about my body too, and out of place. So maybe that's me too, and I'm non-binary, and oh my gosh, I want to chop off my breasts after binding them for years and stuff. Like, you shouldn't allow those people to go down this rabbit hole, because you do end up getting detransitioners who regret doing all this stuff to them, and it hurts your cause. It really does. But what it also does is it leaves the door open for these perverts and these violent people who say that they're trans, and then they're part of your community because they say it. It's basically self-ID, right? And then they go out and commit heinous acts of crime. I'm not going to say that I think that people who are trans have a higher proclivity toward violence, but I do think that people who are unwell, who might be more likely to commit acts of violence, are more susceptible to this ideology. So it was important to gatekeep your community. It was important to gatekeep what was going on in your mind and your mental illness. I saw one video some time ago about how they were complaining about how people didn't want it to be classified as mental illness. And like, that you guys are going to affect how it's handled in healthcare and what kind of, things people can get to affirm if you are, basically, I don't know, trying to act like it's a cosmetic thing and not like something going on in their mind. So you should have stopped all of this ideology from spreading. You should have did your darndest. And now people are so revolted by this and so fed up and annoyed with women losing titles, with any kind of cases of women being uncomfortable in the bathrooms with dudes, or locker rooms or dorm rooms, like women's prisons. People are so upset about hearing this kind of nonsense, and they don't want to go along with it anymore. And it's going to start touching and reaching the rest of the alphabet mafia, because we've seen a trend where people are not as tolerant to gay marriage as they used to be. Now, I've always been for like marriage between a man and a woman. I didn't change, but America's it's less favorable than it used to be. So it's messing up everybody else. They should have kept their stuff, but they didn't. So I don't know if this person is is trans. And maybe they're just an ally. I think about the ideological subversion and the things that the ex-KGB agent talked about, how you destroy a society when the society is so demoralized that you can show them something, tell them something, and the people won't believe it. So if you say, hey, this is not Dylan Mulvaney is a man, he's not a woman. People are so demoralized and brainwashed that they'll be like, what are you talking about? That's a beautiful woman. How dare you? And he looks more beautiful than you do. You're just jealous. Drew Barrymore has to get on her knees and cry in front of Dylan Mulvaney, or whatever the heck, how emotional these folks were. What are you talking about? Of course this male can join this softball team and just demolish everybody. And this team that's never been to the state championship gets to win the whole thing. Of course that's fair. Like, what are you talking about? That's, of course it's not fair. It's unwell. It's unwell. And the fact that you had so many mainstream politicians, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, their administration pushed it so much. So much. And then they're like, oh, Donald Trump, he made this such a big issue on the campaign trail. Like, why is he picking all these people? Because it was a priority for you. You had misplaced priorities and people noticed. And we got to talk about it. We got to talk about it. Joe Biden nominated a judge who put a serial child rapist in a woman's prison. We're not supposed to notice and talk about it? Just so corrupt. So corrupt. So anyway, I don't know if this person is trans, but they have that ideology, transgender ideology, and Antifa stuff on, their weapons. I've seen some people say like, oh, you gotta, and anti-fascist isn't a bad thing, and you gotta like twist yourself in a pretzel to try to pretend like it's a bad thing. And Antifa are like the fascists. Okay, just because someone says anti-fascist doesn't mean that they're actually against fascism. They come at people, they use rough tactics, they want to silence their opponents and kill them in some cases. They're not good people. They're not good people. And these groups haven't been good people. Anyway, let's watch some crazy things the people have been saying. By the way, there are some people who have been saying, oh, this was a professional hit. And I think someone said it on Fox. I've seen people say that online. And people are like, no, it was 200 yards away. People with basic shooting skills could have done it. I mean, and people are like, oh, but he did it in one shot. Like, he could have been aiming for the head and not the neck, We don't know where he was actually aiming. But I don't know, people were speculating it was a paid professional person and they were out on a plane somewhere in a country where people don't have to be, sent back if they did some kind of crime, I don't think it's probably like that. It's the suspect is again, I don't know if they're trans, but the ideology stuff, it's just kind of what most people probably expected in their bones. And I hope other right-wing people are prepared. I know Ben Shapiro always has so much security with him wherever he goes. I don't know how Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, how they travel and stuff, but we shouldn't have to do this. And it's not just like, well, we need to get rid of the guns. And if you feel that way, people should not be so deranged that they're willing to kill people for opinions or just stating true things. That shouldn't warrant people to be crazy and attack people. Like, I was surprised. Like, I get comments from people all the time that are nuts, but I was genuinely surprised how mad people were over that Cracker Barrel stuff I did like 2 weeks ago or so. Like, I just explained, hey, Cracker Barrel, it's named Cracker Barrel because at general stores, there were barrels full of crackers. And people were angry because they believed that it was for white people who were whipping slaves. They were cracking the whip and whipping the slaves. And people were calling me racial slurs and all kinds of terrible stuff. My sister, she asked yesterday, she told me yesterday, she said, if you're getting like any kind of threats and stuff, you need to really take them seriously. And I couldn't think of the last time that I had one. I'm like, I don't think I really get threats. Or if people send them, I guess I don't check my inbox enough. But because there's people who leave comments in like my inbox, but I just I don't check a lot of them. But I was going through different screenshots, and there was someone talking about how they wanted to try to find me and stuff. And it was over that Myers video that I did, correcting misinformation about the grocery store Myers, and that how they fired someone who's consistently stealing food products. And people were saying, "Oh, he's a 16-year-old autistic kid," and Myers was like waiting till he accumulated over $100, and they were watching him and waiting for months. And and what they were saying just wasn't true. And I showed facts, and people were so angry at me because I don't know, that I was sticking up for $1 billion corporation. And someone even said like this, people, it's weird that you would make this video and it's clearly not going the way that you thought it would. And this is the era of, people, celebrating people killing CEOs. And I'm like, I'm not surprised how this is going, because people are wicked and evil. So I'm not surprised that there's so many wicked people advocating for evil. It is a little like alarming just how stupid people are to do it. Like if you were an employer and you saw a bunch of people justifying theft, I'd just be like, "Oh, well, Mark, I'm not hiring that person. They're justifying it here." But I can imagine like all the things that people probably said to Charlie Kirk or messaged his wife and Ben Shapiro and all the like, I guess it just goes with the territory of when you are famous. But it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. You should be able to go to a college campus, have a conversation about policy, talk to people from the other side of the aisle, and do it respectfully. Like one of my youngest sisters, she doesn't pay like a ton of attention to politics, not like maybe more than the average bear, but she's not watching Black Tea every day or something. But but she's just like, every time I've seen Charlie Kirk, he's so respectful. And I'm like, yeah, there's definitely worse people that they, out there who don't engage well with people and can be very rude or are really extreme in their views. Charlie Kirk was pretty chill and very respectful. But let me play you guys some stuff. Here's Ilhan Omar talking about Charlie Kirk.
What I do know for sure is that, Charlie was someone who once said, guns save lives, after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist.
So I hear people talking about the Juneteenth video, and I said, someone had mentioned that earlier, and I need to go back and I guess watch it, but downplaying slavery because he doesn't like Juneteenth, that doesn't make sense. Like that, it doesn't, just because you downplay Juneteenth doesn't mean that you are downplaying what happened to slaves and what happened in America as far as slavery goes. And George Floyd, I mean, people who say it's scumbag or whatever, they might talk about his criminal record and like I think assaulting a pregnant woman and other stuff like that. So, I mean, people had murals of George Floyd and all kinds of different stuff. He didn't care for him, okay? But Juneteenth, I don't think should have been a national holiday. I don't. And I was doing I there were some people who I'll play the rest of her clip, but let me just go ahead and say this. I am aware of people who do not like Charlie Kirk and think that he's racist because of his comments on Juneteenth and his videos and other stuff about like regarding that subject or different tweets. I remember tweets and other things maybe being a little cringe, but there's people on the right who could see how people are trying to weaponize Juneteenth and make it like an alternative to the 4th of July for Black people in an attempt to shame our founding and this day that's supposed to join us all together, to reject that and to point to this other thing. And Juneteenth is something that I've been celebrating for a while because it's a Republican holiday. There's people who do it more in like Texas and in the South or whatever. But like our Republican groups in Michigan or whatever did a couple of Juneteenth things before, you know, anyone decided to make it like a holiday or whatever. So I think it's fine to do a little celebration thing because people are already doing it anyway. But the idea of that being the day that people look to, like, oh, this because they ended slavery. I'm like, okay, well, that's not the day that slavery ended. And people will phrase it that way. And I'm like, okay, well, this is just encouraging people to be historically ignorant. Like, this isn't the day. This is a very specific day where, you know, people showed up and said in the South and said, hey, you guys can't have slaves anymore. And then they partied and celebrated in the streets. But, you know, there was still slavery that needed to end after that, right? Like officially. So that particular day doesn't really make sense. So I don't like it. I think there are better days we could have picked, you know, more prominent days. Like people could have picked the, you know, the day the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, though, of course, slavery still persisted after that. It could have been when it was all ratified and official or whatever. But Juneteenth, it's kind of a weird day. But I understand that people were already kind of celebrating it and they wanted to take that. But there was a conscious effort. Well, at least, I don't know. Let me say it seemed like there was a conscious effort to draw people toward Juneteenth and reject the 4th of July and reject the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, and just look toward other things. And so people were starting to really push back against Juneteenth, push back against like Lift Every Voice. And so I think I was talking earlier today about how people perceive Charlie Kirk on like the issue like Juneteenth and how hard he pushed that. And I said I would have liked to have had a conversation with Charlie Kirk because there's a lot of people who see so much racism and anti-whiteness being pushed that frankly people get pretty defensive. And so I brought up how people saying Lift Every Voice, you know, at the Super Bowl or whatever. And people were offended by it and stuff and trashing this hymn. And so if I said something about it, people would push back against me. And I wrote an article about it. And so then people started reading my article about it. And once they saw my argument about like Lift Every Voice and about the history of the song and all that other kind of stuff, people took a step back and were like, oh, okay, I see your point. So Charlie Kirk, he did like to listen to people and he could change his mind. So I think that's an area where we could have agreement in, because I do think people were trying to use it negatively to divide our nation. But I also believe that pushing too hard also falls. You know how Donald Trump will do things that's obvious, that he's setting up the left to look really stupid, to stand up for illegal alien criminals who've done terrible things, or, you know, to act like crime isn't happening, you know, because they don't want the National Guard to come in. Like he'll set them up to basically make themselves look foolish because they can't help retaliating against Donald Trump. I think I don't know if the left was kind of doing this on purpose, but such negative reactions that some people were having on the right to this stuff was really a turnoff. So I think we could have probably had a productive conversation about that stuff if I had such a chance, that I will never have, because people are crazy and want to kill folks over their political views. So Ilhan Omar here is part of the problem with her dishonesty and how she's framing things about Charlie Kirk. So let's keep watching.
And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, you know, like than to completely pretend that, you know, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so.
Yeah, so there are plenty of things that are recorded, and these people are the ones doing a complete rewrite of history. I do want to point out that I do think the attempt to sort of make everyone look toward Juneteenth rather than 4th of July has failed. And I think people just like to celebrate both holidays now. and they're still going and eating hot dogs on both days or whatever. So I do think that kind of hostility that people were trying to build, it has died down. And even in the midst of when people were doing it, when you kind of went outside and touched grass and talked to real people, not chronically online people, you know, they were like, no, we still like 4th of July. Like I went to a Juneteenth like celebration thing. It was someone was running for office, so that's why I was very like in support. But I'd start interviewing some people. I'm like, what does Juneteenth mean to you or whatever? And like, do you still want to celebrate 4th of July? And people are like, yes, I'm still going to celebrate 4th of July. So they did not accomplish what I think a lot of activists were trying to do as far as dividing the country. But yeah, people were pushing the "What to a Slave is a 4th of July" speech by Frederick Douglass, and I'm like, and then I actually like had read it for the first time. I'm like, this is a wonderful speech and does not do what people are pretending that it does. Like Frederick Douglass, like America is great, but like at the time, it's, you know, not great for everybody, but they have to live up to the promise because it's got potential, you know. And it was just a call to action. Like people have been too passive about this injustice, and we need to right the wrong. But he was asked to give the speech on the 4th of July, but he must have respected the 4th of July so much that he's like, I'm not doing it on the 4th of July. I'll do it on the 5th, but I'm not doing it on the 4th. So he didn't deliver it on the 4th of July because he didn't want to, I don't know, rain on people's parade about it. But he did come back and challenge people. Like he's told folks, he's like, the fact that the Fugitive Slave Act exists is a direct threat to religious liberty. I'm like, yes. Like, so if you haven't read it, it's a lengthy speech, but it's very good, very good. Now let's watch AOC make a fool out of herself.
I mean, I think what has just transpired is tremendously disturbing. It is the latest evolution instance of political violence in the United States, and it must end.
What message do you have to your fellow lawmakers regarding the political environment? What message do you have to your fellow lawmakers regarding the political environment and the rhetoric that has been put out in the media?
You know, beyond rhetoric, we need to talk about action. And we need to talk about, yes, there are words, but most importantly, we are in a job of leadership. We are in a job of action. We are in a role and a position where the American people are looking to us to do something about this. And every single day, people are dying due to gun violence in America. And every single day, There are people in this building that continue to vote against doing anything. They vote against universal background checks. They continue to support legislation and also remove any way to block the mentally ill, to block extremists, to block people with histories and records of domestic violence from getting guns in their hands. So are we going to do something about this or not? We have a political assassination that happened at the same time as a school shooting where children are dying on this.
Okay, so I do want to point out that like she's going to need to show her work as far as Republicans making the claim. First of all, a lot of people will just have the opinion that I don't know, like background checks don't cover domestic violence. And she's making an accusation here that they're trying to repeal that stuff. You're gonna have to show your work. First of all, people on the right talk about mental health. And I'm curious what they mean about mental health and those kinds of checks. Because when I played for you guys when Scott Jennings was like, okay, we don't want unwell people to have guns. Like, okay, what about trans people? And they're like, oh, it's a cop out talking about mental health. It's a cop out. Okay, if you, not that everybody who's trans is dangerous, but you do have some kind of break either in reality or you're just like really, just maybe you acknowledge the reality that you're not really a woman, but you just want to pretend that you are because it makes you feel better. But there is something wrong with the mind and you are mentally ill. So who gets to make the list? And then like mental institutions have gone down. If someone, it's not easy to keep people who don't want to be there voluntarily. So if you want to go hard on like who should be institutionalized and how long they should be there, I played for you guys a clip the other day of people just so upset on CNN that someone said that the guy with 14 priors who killed that Ukrainian girl should have been locked up. She said like, implied like forever, like you want to lock up somebody who's for schizophrenia. There's people walking around and she's like, this person is violent, had 14 priors, and they just acted like she was insane. So when you say mental health, like what do you mean? Like they won't give you tax dollars for a spa date? Like what exactly do you mean? Like what are the solutions? Because I keep saying I think these people want people to be crazy, and that's why they lie to them every day and try to make them unhinged and hysterical about politics. But as far as like what's covered in the background checks, I just asked Chat. I already knew this stuff, but I asked ChatGPT. I'm like, what do background checks for guns cover? And they said in the US, when someone buys a gun from federally licensed firearms dealer, the dealer is required to run a background check through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, which is managed by the FBI. Here's what those checks generally cover. The system checks multiple federal and state databases to see if the buyer falls into any prohibited categories under the federal law. A person cannot legally purchase or possess a firearm if they are a convicted felon, anyone convicted of a crime punishable by more than 1 year in prison, fugitive from justice, someone with an outstanding arrest warrant, unlawful drug user or addict, including recent evidence of use of controlled substances. That's what Hunter Biden got in trouble for because he lied on his ATF form to acquire a firearm, and he wrote about his addiction, all kind of stuff. So there was evidence that he was definitely using at the time. And so they had him dead to rights on that. And of course, Daddy wanted to get him out of trouble. And there was a sweetheart deal that blew up. And eventually Joe Biden just pardoned his son after the media. People like Abby Phillips, like, oh, he says he's not a pardon. He's not going to pardon his son. And he totally did it. But people before like the pardons and all the deals were like, I just feel so bad for Hunter Biden because, a normal person, they just want to be charged, and he's only being charged because he's the president's son. They're only picking him because it's Biden's son. I'm like, one, I don't think that's true. But two, if you guys care about gun laws, you should definitely care when people are breaking the gun laws. Okay, you should definitely care about people breaking the gun laws. And if they break the gun law, like, what do you think should happen to them? Should they not get in trouble? This is such a serious thing to you guys, and you don't want him to be held accountable. That's why so many of them were hypocrites. Abdicated as mentally defective or committed to a mental institution by a court or authority. Legal or unlawful immigrant, non-U.S. citizen without legal status, dishonorably discharged from the U.S. military, renounced U.S. citizenship, subject to qualifying restraining order, such as domestic violence or restraining order, convicted of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence. So for those of you who don't think that they count that stuff, if you're a domestic abuser, they do count that stuff in the databases. And number 10, under indictment for a crime punishable by more than 1 year, even if not convicted yet. So for people who always want folks to get off and don't want to report stuff, that's going to be an issue if a background check happens and that stuff isn't flagged. Which, by the way, Hunter Biden, they were threatening, like, if he had to go to trial for his gun charge, then he was going to allegedly make the case that it's unconstitutional to have those sorts of things on there. And so I don't know if they're going to try to just argue up to the Supreme Court that they shouldn't have restriction, I guess, shall not be infringed. And the fact that he even has to check a box about whether he, is on drugs or not isn't constitutional. That would have been interesting, but of course, Daddy pardoned him. Yeah, but AOC here doesn't even know what she's talking about. Also, the type of firearm that was used, how are you going to get that gone? Unless you like go door to door confiscating everybody's firearms. Like, how are you going to get rid of such things? We can keep watching.
Same day, a week after a shooting at a Catholic school where children were gunned down while praying. Are we going to do something, or are we going to argue over rhetoric? That is my question about this. We have to pass gun safety legislation and stop this.
One congresswoman was saying that when they got Republicans and it's Democrats.
I mean, people can finger point all they want. Look at the record. Look at the actions of what we are doing.
Yeah, she's already pointing fingers right now to like Republican legislators. That's what she's doing.
I don't think a single person who has dedicated their entire career to preventing gun safety legislation from getting passed in this House has any right to blame anybody else but themselves for what has happened.
What kind of gun safety regulations? Like, what specific laws do you think would have prevented something like this? Like, when there's some kind of mass shooting, I think it's important for people to wait for some information, but before you want to, people are like, do something. Okay, what kind of law would you pass that would have prevented something like this? Like, did they get the guns illegally? And if they did get them legally, like, was there something that should have been flagged? Like, if there was a red flag law and did nothing come up? Or was there things in their past that people didn't report? The Uvalde kid? I can't remember exactly how he got his guns, but there was stuff that definitely should have popped up somewhere in people's red flags, because that person was crazy, really crazy. And there were signs that he was violent, very violent. So what specific things would have stopped this? I don't know how this person got the single shot bolt action rifle, but it's not even a semi-automatic. So what are you going to do?
We have to stop this. We can stop this. And why don't we start by acknowledging that basic common sense gun safety legislation is not taking away a gun, is not attacking the Second Amendment, but it is about ensuring the safety of our children, of women, of people across this country, to ensure that guns and firearms do not get in the hands of people who are going to use them against human beings, period. Domestic violence.
Well, I mean, you might have to use a firearm against a human being. I mean, that's just like, as far as like using them against a human being, you mean like unjustly, but you may need to defend your property from a home intruder. You know, you may need to protect your life from a psycho who wants to kill you for your political views. You may have to protect your congregation from some psychopath who might want to come in and kill people there for your ideology, for your religion, because they're racist. I don't know. There are reasons to have firearms to protect yourself. I was frankly against the idea of like teachers being armed, because I'm like, if they do that, like what if something backfires? I'm like, I don't know. You know, it just seems like it's too risky and stuff. And I changed my mind after Uvalde. I changed my mind after that. One, I found out that there are teachers who are armed, and I'm not aware of like any sort of incident. So, it's safer than I perceived, I guess. And two, I don't think it's right to just allow people to be sitting ducks like that. And the law enforcement they didn't allow like the parents to go in, and they were like fighting to stop the parents. And like, so, I think there was somebody who was off duty who got like a gun from somewhere else, like a barber, some kind of store front place, I think, and went in and like, I think took out the shooter. If I'm remembering the details, I haven't looked up the story and refreshed it in a while, but I think those are kind of the details. But I was just horrified that they would basically be left to be sitting ducks. And there was an issue with Parkland and officers not doing acting appropriately, but Uvalde was just horrific. And so there were some teachers like, I don't want to I didn't feel like they wanted to protect the kids and put their lives on the line and carry the firearm or whatever. If you feel that way, you feel that way. I think there are teachers who would want to protect children in that kind of situation if they have that option. But just to be able to defend yourself, I think people ought to be able to have that option. I'm not saying that that's the way to solve these issues. I'm just telling you that I was actually against more guns in that situation. And it was a horrific school shooting that made me be like, you know what? Actually, I think it makes more sense for more guns. And people who are trying to convince you to give up your firearms are the ones, not all of them, obviously, I'm speaking in general, but there's people who are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, who are mocking him for being pro Second Amendment, who want people to give up their firearms. I'm like, I think I won't. I think I'm good. Like, I don't trust you with my well-being and safety, and I think I would be in danger if I just surrendered all that stuff to you. Because even if you did get, I don't know, went door to door and collected all the guns and stuff, what's to stop you from bringing a crazy mob to my door because you didn't like what I tweeted out about, I don't know, healthcare or transgender issues, or I don't know, Cracker Barrel. Like, what's to stop you guys from doing that? You bringing a mob into my house to like rob me blind? Like, what's supposed to stop that? If you like, well, I guess if you want to get a car to ram through my house, I guess maybe something a gun can do, but there's other ways to kill people. The Ukrainian girl who died the other day, or we watched her die from that footage, she wasn't gunned down, she was stabbed. Like, there was an issue like in the UK with people throwing acid, and they have a knife problem. You know, people not respecting life is a problem. And as AOC saying, like, people are dying every day from gun violence. Gun violence is terrible, but I'm also thinking, like, people are dying from abortion every day, and you guys stand 10 toes down that women ought to be able to do it. So you are subjectively caring about human life. So that's why in a situation with Charlie Kirk being murdered, you're the one saying we don't need to point fingers, and yet you're pointing fingers at Republicans. Let's finish this. Try to finish this out.
Is one of the highest indicators of whether a person is going to kill someone else with a gun or not. There are so many other indicators, you know, and I think it is so deeply important that when a politician tries to blame words for inaction, they need to look at their action and their record. Enough of this. This is
okay. So I'm sorry, I meant to play the rest of it, but to say, like, okay, we need to not get distracted with the rhetoric of what people are saying. I think to inflame crazy people with ideologies to do crazy things. Now, the person who commits the egregious act, they are responsible for that, but people are responsible for their rhetoric, and I would say making people more crazy. And I think she contributes to this discourse, right? Okay, but the gun didn't wake up in the morning and say, "Let me go kill Charlie Kirk." A gun didn't wake up in the morning and say, "Let me go kill some kids at a school." Like, there was a person behind that. So when even the last time we had this conversation and people try to talk about mental health, people were saying that's a scapegoat. It's a distraction because they want to jump to the conversation about confiscation. And she's like, "Come on, it's going to take your Second Amendment." What are you going to do to stop something like what happened to Charlie Kirk? I mean, you could sweep the area more and have more security beefed up or whatever, and coordinate with if someone like him goes to a college campus, is basically going to be like if the president comes to town. I think that's very sad if that's how we have to deal with things going forward. Maybe they won't do outside events anymore. I don't know. Beefing up security is an obvious, route to go. But as far as the firearms, what is your plan to stop such a thing, unless you're going to go door to door and say no more Second Amendment? And even when people talk about AR-15s, which is a common use firearm, and some people think that the AR stands for automatic rifle. That's not true. That's like the brand. It's like Armalite or something. And it's a semi-automatic, which means you have to, if it's automatic, you can hold the trigger and it just keeps firing. If it's semi, you have to like hold the trigger. But most crimes that are most like mass shootings are committed with handguns. So they might convince you to take your AR-15s away, or maybe they won't convince you. Maybe they'll just do it. And if they do that, and there's still mass shootings with like gang violence and other stuff like that, or someone takes a gun or two to school, if that still occurs, don't you think they'd go after what causes the most mass shootings? And then you might only have things like the particular type of gun that killed Charlie Kirk. And maybe that's some kind of gun, rifle, or something that someone might inherit from their grandpa or something. And they'll have to knock on that door and see that you have it. But they won't know where all this stuff is, if you're inheriting that kind of stuff, unless they can really, 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 really dive into your personal business. And that's why a lot of people want universal background checks, so they can maybe one day work their way up to actually doing mass confiscation. So
horrific. This is awful. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk risks an uncorking of political chaos and violence that we cannot risk in America. We cannot risk it.
Given the political temperature, are you worried about holding events in public?
I think that, of course, it's a natural consequence to see this and to be worried about this. And I think, but what is most important is the fact that we've gotten to this place, and we need to figure out what we can do to ensure that every American can feel safe going to a public event.
Yeah. Again, if you're going to, yeah, Mark Hemingway pointed this out. The gun allegedly found was a single-shot bolt-action rifle. Unless your plans are to repeal the Second Amendment and seize every firearm in existence, there's no gun law that would have prevented this. If the press knew anything, they would call her on this. They could have. Maybe they don't know much about it, you know? Maybe they don't know. There's a lot of people, I mean, talking about it. Like I said, folks were saying, "Oh, this shot, it's got to be from an expert." And this person said, "I really wish non-gun people would stop saying stupid bleep like this. 200 yards with a scoped 30 to 6 from the prone of a stationary target is something most 12-year-olds from Alabama can do. This is not something that takes a skilled professional." So I'll take their word for that. I definitely need my glasses. I need to get some new ones. That's why I'm always squinting. There's more. Let's look at this leftist and what he had to say.
Here's something that Charlie had regularly argued, and hard disagree on this one, man. But quote, I think it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. So, hey, some gun deaths every year are worth it for Second Amendment rights. It's like, well, I mean, now you're one of those people.
So, the thing that Charlie is trying to point out, or did try to point out, seems kind of obvious to me, but I'll just put it in this terms. It seems kind of obvious that if we have cars on the road, at some point of time, you're going to have a car accident and there's going to be people who die. And because even if there will be people who will pass away from car crashes, it's still worth it for people to have the opportunity to drive to get from location to location. And that's essentially what he was saying with the Second Amendment, that it's just going to be the case that people will use weapons to commit harm against one another, just like they use baseball bats and arsenic and all sorts of other things to cause harm and take lives. Knives, for example. So if people will use those things, they'll certainly use firearms if they can get access to them. And it's just a reality that some people will lose their lives. But overall, we still should have the right to defend ourselves from intruders, invaders, our government, if it ends up becoming tyrannical, right? The fact that Charlie Kirk was killed, and not by an AR-15, not by an automatic rifle or anything like that. The fact that he was killed, if he had like a crystal ball that was, hey, if we don't get rid of the Second Amendment, you're going to not live past the age of 31. Should we get rid of the Second Amendment? He wouldn't say, hey, let's get rid of the Second Amendment. He'd know that he couldn't pull that off. But I don't think that Charlie would say, yeah, we should get rid of the Second Amendment. I don't. So if people want to mock him for believing in the Second Amendment and try not to understand what he's obviously trying to convey here, and be like, oh, well, he was one of those casualties. Yeah, and you're, unless you want to confiscate people's stuff and go door to door, your solutions to gun violence, if you have any at all, would not have stopped this. And you guys want to focus on this because you don't want to talk about rhetoric. And you really don't want to talk about mental health because it makes your side look like trash. I do want to reiterate that there are people on the other side of the aisle that have offered condolences and have condemned the sort of stuff that some people are saying in celebration. But it's just, excuse me, a really awful time. I want to read what Shoe on Head wrote. I haven't, I guess, watched a Shoe on Head video in a while, but I've still been following her for a minute, and she's been popping up on my feed quite a bit lately. And so she was really upset about the Ukrainian girl being stabbed, and so I'm gonna go ahead and read her post. These last 2 weeks have completely blackpilled me on the left, even after 10 years of covering their antics, woke, slop, etc. I am not leaving the left. I still have all my economic left positions. I'm quintessentially a 2015 Bernie bro, a Huey Long disciple for strong social safety nets, workers' rights, etc., that hasn't changed and only has gotten stronger with time. I side with them on things like the Israel and war in general, but is that even what left is nowadays? I don't know. Looking around socially, personally, on a human level, if this is what the left is, I am not left. For the first time in a decade, I truly do not want to be grouped in with these people. It is now very clear we live in a completely different realities with different morals. From the insane, bizarre reaction to the murder of an innocent woman on a train, reflexively getting madder about people being mad about it than the actual murder, dismissing people's very real concerns about dying, decaying society to, well, that's just living in the city, chud. Car accidents are more common, to celebrating the gruesome murder of a husband, father, just a guy, not a politician, not a CEO, a bleeping guy and by the way, people were celebrating that CEO being killed not too long ago, for having a normie con campus conservative co-worker politics, for the crime of not being a liberal, not believing in the current thing. It is clear how they reacted about Charlie is how they would react about me, my friends, my family, any of you, your friends, your family that have ever stepped out of line in the nebulous, ever-changing definition of progressive. Anyone who has ever been called a Nazi for the stupidest bleep in the last 10 plus years. Charlie was staunchly right-wing, but remember, none of you are pure enough. Many things have made me feel this way over the years. DNC bleeping Bernie twice, COVID lockdowns, trucker protest, being lied to about Kyle Rittenhouse and believing it like a moron. Ooh, I didn't know she believed it. Drag kid bleep, being gaslit with the Balenciaga drama, realizing adults should be able to do what they want is becoming a fascist belief. The bike Karen lie, how they wanted Daniel Penny's head for doing the exact community policing they talked about wanting. I can go on, but this week in particular, that is true. Like, people talk about, we don't need police, we can do community policing, and we need social workers and stuff. And, you know, anyway, I can go on, but this week in particular has been eye-opening. Posting videos and pictures of Charlie's wife and young kids will not move them because they cannot relate and never will. They are atomized bug people who hate their families and themselves, the unfortunate product of modern society. They are miserable, evil human beings, and I owe many people many apologies for ever thinking otherwise. Maybe I will calm down, but I couldn't sleep. But I am absolutely demoralized and black-pilled beyond belief. I do not want my child growing up in a world like this. Sick, evil bleep. And that was Shoe on Head. So she's upset. I get it. It is sick. It is really sick. But there were some other posts that I saw. J.K. Rowling called out Ken Keir Starmer, because he said, "My thoughts this evening are with the loved ones of Charlie Kirk. It is heartbreaking that a young family has been robbed of a father and a husband. We must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence." So J.K. Rowling called him out and said, "An elected representative of your own party was advised by police not to attend a labor conference because of the physical risk to her from trans activists. You did nothing. You showed her no support. You criticized her for stating biological facts." So I do not believe in the UK that they believe that we should be free to have open debate when they arrest people for crap said online. So no, nobody believes you, bro. Nobody believes you. I'm trying to find, I swear I had retweeted what some people were saying about church and trying to go back to church. Charlie, people are going through old tweets of Charlie Kirk, and he said, "You can tell a lot about a person by how they react when someone dies." I'm like, he was right. When someone passes away that I don't like, I tend to just say nothing. I might say my condolences, but if it's a political person that I'm not too fond of, I just, I'm not gonna like dog on them immediately when their families are grieving. I don't need to be the person who does that. There have been times when I didn't post anything on my social media, like in my Black Tea page on Facebook or something, because I didn't want any people who might not like those politicians to say a bunch of nasty things on my page about the person. So saying nothing is an option if you didn't like Charlie Kirk. You could not say anything. You could be radio silent. And you could at least condemn political violence. But for people to celebrate and be like, "Nah, I don't care about him." Okay, you don't need to announce that to the world. You must care a little bit to announce it, to let everybody know how much you didn't care about this man being murdered. So you care. You are letting people know. And you felt that was important. So I saw some people, here's one. Someone said, "Not going to lie, with everything going on, I'm feeling the pull to go to church and give my life to Jesus." So there's different comments like that I'm seeing online. And there was also someone saying that they want to be on the right side. They didn't believe in God, but they do believe in evil now. So I'm, glad that people are at least waking up to those sorts of things. And now with it being late in the day, we're past the hour mark. I want to show you guys this clip of Charlie Kirk. I said I would play it before I left. It's very short, but he was asked how he wants people to remember him. And it's a great answer.
How do you want to be remembered? I mean, if I die, everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
How do you want to be remembered?
So that's what Charlie wants to be remembered for. Just being someone who loves the Lord and spoke up for his faith, encouraging people to read their Bibles, go to church, get married, start families, raise them well. That's if you want to honor Charlie Kirk and what he's doing, you don't have to take to the streets and do violence on any kind of stuff. Pick up a Bible and read it. Go to church, sit in the pews, learn something, be discipled. Start, be engaged in your community, start a family. He would say, don't have sex out of wedlock, wait till you're married. That's his good relationship advice. I watched one of those videos today from Charlie Kirk. There's a song from Lecrae. A lot of people don't like Lecrae because they feel he's pretty woke. And I'm not too fond of him, I guess, politically or whatever. But he's a song that's, several years old now. when a lot of people liked him. And it was like, I'm in rebellion. And I'm in rebellion. And there was some preacher, I don't know if it's his pastor or whatever, was preaching a sermon about if you want to be a rebel, like go to church, read your Bible. Like that's the only rebellion left. And I don't know the verses. It's like Jesus was a rebel, renegade, outlaw, like, you know, so go be cool, go read your Bible. That's my advice to you. And we all need that peace that passeth all understanding. There was something going on today. My sister's like on a 21-day fast. Some days she's going full days and some days she's doing half days. And there was just drama and just stuff that had us kind of reeling. And she's really upset about it. And I was just like, maybe the Lord had told her to fast because she needed to fast. Sometimes you need to disconnect with the world and just get closer to God. I think we always need to get closer to God, but some people need to log off. This is really heavy, the stuff that's going on, and just refocus and really prioritize what's important. And Charlie Kirk knew, with all the stuff he's accomplished, at the end of the day, he wanted to be known as a man of faith. And that's admirable. I said the other day, like, I don't think he'd want to be a political martyr. He'd want to be rather be a martyr for Christ. Well, just remember that he stood up for his faith, and his values, much of them are rooted in the fact that he's a Christian. So keep that in mind and keep up the good fight. But we will not be silenced, and we'll keep on keeping on. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, you guys can support at the website. And you guys can check out different stuff that I've written and all that kind of different stuff. You guys know. But thank you guys for being with me. It is still weird to just think about this stuff. Trump did do an address. He addressed the nation last night, which some people were upset about, but I didn't play that, but he did do that. He is going to honor him. Which I saw people upset saying this is an abuse of the presidential power. Well, he can grant him a medal. It is within his power to do so. And Charlie Kirk, he really did something incredible. And it's not like he was leading some kind of like street rebellion of thugs or something. He would go to college campuses and people would talk. And the crazy thing about so many people who hate him or hate Michael Knowles or all these different people, sometimes you'll see videos of protesters and like, well, what's something that they've said? And they don't even know their views. They don't even know their beliefs. And they'll have to find like Google different things, like, because they don't follow these people. There's just a crowd of people who hate them. They're like, hey, this person we don't like is coming to campus. Like, we should go protest them, which is wild to me because these people have been around for a while now, going to these campuses for a while, but there's still so many people who don't know what these people have said and don't know their positions because so many people, they only read about how people distort them. So, anyway, I'll see you guys. Yes, Jesus is the original rebel. And go read your Bible. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.